Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision presents Elements of Horror. My name is Sean.
And I'm John Schlesinger.
And I'm Ray.
And guys, I'd just like to take a moment to say something to you.
Mm.
3.1 415926 535 8979 323 846 264 338 3279 502 884 197 1693 993 751 058209 749 4459 2307 816 409. Oh, no, I fucked up. It was 406, so I'll stop there. Yes, that's my phone number. So anybody within the sound of our voice, you can call me. You can send me dick pics, whatever you want. Just dial those numbers and send away.
Dick
Good
pics, all
night.
right.
Godspeed. No. So we're going to talk about, this is my pick for Elements of Horror this time, and this is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I had kind of forgotten that, actually, until a couple months ago. This is Darren Aronofsky's first film. It's called Pi. Not P-I-E, P-I, or that symbol that looks like a house with a crooked roof.
Also known as Max Cohen Iron Man.
Yes, yes. This was released in 1998. It cost $60,000 to make. And most of that was raised by Aronofsky getting $100 donations from family and friends. He did eventually return that investment with some, a little juice on top. And then this was bought by, I believe it was Artisan for $1 million. And got wide distribution, kind of disappeared for a while. And January 2025, A24 announced they had the rights to it. And Ray and I saw a screening at Chinese Theater in Hollywood. And I was reminded, oh my God, I haven't watched this movie in like 15 or more years. And I love this movie. Why?
It had
So
been a while for me too.
you can get the new A24 4K transfer from the A24 shop. I didn't buy the 4K disc. I just bought the Blu-ray. Still 4K transfer. Stars Sean Gillette as Max, Ben Shankman as Lenny Meyer, Mark Margolis, or Ding Ding Ding, as Saul Robeson, Pamela Hart as Marcy Dawson, and Stanley Hermit as the Mustacheless Man. Cinematographer Matthew Leboutique. Sound design Brian Emmerich. Score Clint Mansell, who's gone on to do many, many things.
I was gonna say, yeah.
One of which, Doom Patrol, one of my favorite scores in a long time. But yeah, I mean, I think this started a bunch of careers, and definitely Aronofsky, who arguably has become, I know he's like a big time director, but he stays really below my radar usually. He gets a movie here and there that gets some acclaim or gets some attention, and I feel like he releases stuff and I don't hear about it until like a year after it's already streaming or whatever. But I like a lot of his movies quite a bit. I love this movie. It has a gritty 16 millimeter, or I'm sorry, 35 millimeter guerrilla filming, like no permits for anything. All the subway scenes he talks about in the commentary, they were all guerrilla. And it's just, I don't know, it adds to the charm. It's just very, very special. And the elements of horror thing is the headaches that Max gets. Because the way that they portray them with sound and editing is just horrendous. But also, the scenes with Euclid, dude, those scenes remind me 100% of James Whale's Frankenstein. There's something about the grit and the texture of those scenes. So I don't know, guys. Tell me, John. Tell me your history with this movie. When did you see it first? How do you feel about it?
Uh, Truth be told, it's the only Aronofsky movie I like.
Okay.
Um, I I'm I've read Requiem for a Dream. Um, the film, gave me its high voltage shock the first time I saw it, and my opinion of that film has just soured with each additional viewing.
You made it
Um,
through more than one. That's impressive. I could not do more than one. That was it.
there's a I have a little bit of a fondness for The Fountain. Other films that he's made, I just yeah, not for me. I just can't really do it. Pie I really like, and I saw it not in the theater. I mean, I wish that I could claim that I did, but I can't. So I probably saw this right before Requiem for a Dream came out is when I saw it because I heard through a lot of indie circles about the buzz on this film, and it's interesting that like well over 20 years later this kind of boomerangs around into my life by way of In Elements of Horror episode, because it's like I've always regarded this film as a horror film. Uh, Same thing with Requiem. And oh, Jesus, what I hate Aronofsky. What the fuck am I saying? I love Black Swan as well.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Pie and Black Swan. That's it for me. Uh, because all of those films, it's all about people just buckling, their bodies just buckling under the strain of like either ideological stress or psychological stress. And here you've got both. You have in such a not just in black and white, but total DIY filmmaking style of black and white. I alluded earlier to the fact that this film feels in part inspired by the Japanese film Tetsuo the Iron Man, but in many respects, and I'm just saying this because I've seen it recently, it also feels a lot like George Lucas's THX 1138. Um, and I guess what I like about it is that it's horror that's rooted in knowledge itself. Like it's what if the universe is structured in a pattern? What if you glimpse it? And what if that glimpse destroys you? And just sort of unlike, your supernatural horror films, the threat isn't a monster, it's comprehension. And it's like you might
Hmm.
think of it as like, horror is not that the universe has no meaning. Like, as horror lovers, we are steeped in films that are about that staring into the void.
Hmm.
This one, the horror in this film is not that the universe has no meaning. The horror is that it might. And he's able to, on a shoestring budget, make that even more terrifying than most films about staring into the void.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, that's very well put. That's very well put. It is. It is. I mean, that's a very well put way of thinking about it because it is the horror of this film. Like it's such an unusual concept because usually we're like seeking out knowledge. We want to find the answers to things in horror. Does a thing of explaining away like the things that we don't understand in our world, and this movie suggests that having a deeper understanding and the framework of reality will can cause the fracture of a mind and losing balance with reality, losing balance with your own sanity, and ultimately possibly even the destruction of your body because he's having these terrible headaches, he's having these nosebleeds. It's an excellent point about this film. But to go back to your original question, um, when did this movie originally come out? 97?
98.
98. Okay. I think it was about that time that I know where I saw it. There was an AMC theater that became slightly unpopular about within the city that I live in. It was in Hermosa Beach. And just the location kind of was unfortunate. It was above this at one point there was an arcade and then there was a gym and it just kept switching out the tenants below it, and they opened other like bigger theater chains near around and near it that people stopped going there, and it was losing popularity. And in this kind of interesting move, AMC made that a the local art house. It was still an AMC, but they featured a lot of more art house cinema.
Hmm.
So like I got to see this there. I got to see Buffalo 66 there. There was a couple other films, and it was nice. It was like having the feature of having like an art theater in in the South Bay a lot closer than like having to go all the way to Hollywood or some other areas and having to trek out to go see something. Because at that point, like, the Man and like AMC's really didn't show art house films. Like they showed the big movies that were going to get
Mm.
audiences in, and like these just didn't pull in big crowds. And so you had to go to like New Arts and things like that. You had to go out Lemley's to go out and see those movies. Um, and I'd heard about this movie. There was an article about it. I think it was just in Film. There was I don't know if the magazine's still around, but I think it was just called Film Magazine. About Aronofsky, about his star, about Clint Mansell's um, soundtrack. It was kind of what pulled me in because I'd read about how electronic, dense this soundtrack is. And at the time, like electronic music was finally starting to get like the like credit it deserved. And I had been a fan since like the early '90s of electronic music, so I was like, oh wow, so you did a whole electronic soundtrack. Okay, I'm in then. Let's go see this.
Mm.
Um, and just it is honestly probably my one of my favorite movies of his. I always forget that he did Black Swan. Like that's one of the only other films of his that I've consistently seen. The others, I kind of see bits and pieces here and there. Like I've never. I think I've had too many people tell me about the traumatic experiences of sitting through um, a Requiem for a Dream that I just don't want to put myself through that.
You don't.
Um,
I think it's an amazing film, but you don't want to put yourself through it.
and so I've never sat down for it and like I don't know. Like I give him his credit, but like I don't feel like necessarily everything he makes is like for me. But like Black Swan, yeah, awesome movie. And like this one, I've always enjoyed this movie. I bought the soundtrack right away. I bought it on DVD when it came out. I think I need to now buy this new edition that's come out. But one of the things I kind of forgot until we saw it at the Chinese that time was that how bombastic this soundtrack is. Like I was sitting there in the movie theater and I'd forgotten like because you're at home, you turn it down. But like when you see a movie in a theater, you see it at the sound level that they intended you to listen to it at.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and it's just like bong bong doo doo, and you're like, damn, it's really it hits you. And I forgot about that. And I really enjoyed the experience. It was I mean, we were close, and that was a huge screen, but man, that was a good
Yeah.
time going to see it at the Chinese. Um, and I think part of the reason I like it so much amongst his early films is it's one of those films that like is a good example of what you can do with talent and energy and passion with a tiny little budget. Like
Yeah.
there's people out there that are just trying to like that get given money like to make just shit. They just put this garbage out there that like spend like 180 million and people walk out and they're like that wasn't very good, and it's disappointing because there's that this shows that there's people out there that have like some idea that they're kicking around, they want to produce, they want to get made, and they just need the money for it. And it pays to take a chance. It pays to like give somebody an opportunity and go, okay, well, go shoot what you want, and then somebody comes
Hmm.
back with this. Like, this is a good example of that.
It is.
But yeah, I've always enjoyed the film. Like, it's got some great, interesting ideas in it, and like just the paranoia. Like, you feel like it's funny because the film starts you wonder if his paranoia is real, and then you get to the halfway point and you're like, oh my god, all these people are actually really after him, and you
Yes.
realize, holy shit, it's real. Like,
It's more real than
damn.
even he realizes, like at one
Yeah,
point.
absolutely.
Well, it's got that wonderful. So I think it's such the paranoia is so good, and that like John, like you said, that the horror of comprehension. I think one of the techniques here that always like cements this as just an incredible watch every time I watch it is it's rhythmic, and actually in the commentary Aronofsky talked about that, where like there's like some hip hop influence in it, and we're talking like 90s hip hop kids, not like a lot of the stuff that passes for today, but there are certain like he samples and reuses certain scenes like the pills, like that's the big one, or like the press return, like the keys, like there's just certain
Yeah.
things, and it creates this momentum that then the paranoia sits on top of, and it, it there's times, and it really the Tetsuo thing. So I forget if one of you guys told me this or if somebody else told me this, and he did not say this. He did talk about the brain and on the subway stairs scenes in the commentary, but somebody told me that's a direct reference to Tetsuo, and I saw Tetsuo once a couple years ago when Joe Bob did it. So I cannot confirm or deny if there's like a scene with a brain that that looks like it might be a riff on.
There is a subway scene in Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
I thought about this the other day, but it's like Darren Aronofsky saw like around 97 probably when he was in pre-production on this, and he was looking at the digital age and seeing where it was going and decided to make, Lovecraft the Call of Cthulhu for the digital age. Just set in New York, we're looking at forbidden knowledge, and somebody whose brain is essentially broken down, and yeah, the result is you get Lovecraft without tentacles.
Well, and it drives you mad or it drives you to death. Like Saul ends up dead, right? I mean, and it literally causes his stroke, and then most likely once again causes his death. And Max is obviously driven insane, and also like we get those rhythms carrying that paranoia on top of it, and you go into these subway scenes, and that's where things kind of start to break down, and you get like the guy with the dripping blood, the brain. Um, that wonderful, it's part of the brain sequence where like he ends up turning around and like it's like a train is coming right at him or whatever, but
Yeah.
then when he comes back up it's like it's not just all of a sudden like the stockbrokers are closing in, and is the government involved, and then you get in with the Jewish mystics, and then it gets really crazy because now you are talking Lovecraft territory. Like, and I love Max's scene where he's like, "It's in me, it's changing me." Like all of a sudden now he's like, "Wow, he's got to be worried about himself as well now because he's where is he? Like, can you put both feet on the ground at this point? Maybe not, And I mean, obviously not because we know how the movie ends. Um, oh,
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking about this in terms of urban aesthetic horror,
mm,
and because it's not the first time we've seen this, especially in, I mean, you look at something like a completely different city like L.A. and uh, Neon Demon, Nicholas Winding Refn's Neon Demon makes an urban horror in his own style,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, this is something very different. It's like a pre 9/11 Manhattan that becomes this metaphysical pressure cooker. Um, and the whole thing, and another thing that where we're comparing it to Tetsuo the Iron Man is that you feel literally assaulted by the soundscape in
Yes.
this. Very and not just Tetsuo, but references to Eraserhead as well in that
Oh
regard.
yeah, yeah, absolutely good, great call, great call.
Yeah, where the subway screeches and industrial decay become musical instruments of themselves. Uh, Cramped apartments, we kind of got that a little bit in caught stealing, but here it feels real. And yeah, people that just looking at obsession and through repetition, that with traces of Travis Bickle and Jack Torrance all thrown into one. Um, and there's body horror, of course, but it's a lot of it is just really internalized. We have no monsters, no gore, spectacle, just pain that is self-inflicted in many ways and internalized. And I'm just thinking about that good old drill scene.
Ray?
Well, I do have a question about the sound, just while it's on the tip of the brain. Is this Kronos Quartet?
No,
The music?
that's Requiem for a Dream. This
Oh, I
is
oh, I know it's Requiem. I was just wondering if he used Kronos for this as
no,
well.
no.
Okay.
It's
No,
it's
it's all
entirely
Mansell.
Mansell, and then also there's a space time continuum track in there as well. But that's
Okay.
almost more ambience than anything
Got it.
else.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Ray, let me start with you. What are the chances that the people in his apartment building, that his apartment building is actually his mind, and the people in his apartment building are all different attributes of his mind?
Ooh, a new thought. I hadn't thought about that before. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
there's
a
there's
possibility.
there's the repression with the neighbor, like the childish fascination with numbers of the little girl, which would mimic
Yeah.
himself. Kind of the stern landlady, takes no bullshit. He obviously takes no bullshit. I don't know. There's just a bunch of, and the locks on the door are really what makes me think like it. I don't know. Is that like some kind of a giant visual metaphor for Max Cohen's brain?
I mean, it could be. And I guess that girl that keeps checking in on him is like his a part of him that's like telling him like he needs to step away from this and like focus on other things. Like he needs to like I mean and that professor tells him too like that he loves to visit. Like he's telling him like uh, he needs to back off. Like and he I mean he makes that point and it's an accurate point of like when you look for a number or whenever you like look
Yep.
for a pattern in something, you start to see the pattern everywhere. And it becomes more about your brain putting the pattern there than actually it being there. Like
Yep.
you want it to be real, so you'll find that reality everywhere rather than that reality existing. Um there is a little bit of a problem with that though, because I mean, even though there is an honesty to that, there there is the thing of all these different. I mean, the government seems to want him. That group that's involved with the stock market wants him, and I mean the Jewish mystics want the number that he has. It it does it does suggest that he's onto something and that there is a pattern, but maybe that well I mean maybe he says you brought up that point in that line where he says it's in me, it's changing me, and then he lobotomizes himself so he gets rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a ultimate realization that even he isn't ready, like maybe mankind, or there's just we haven't evolved to a state where we should have that number, because it does drastic things to the holder of the number.
Or did he just not take the? I mean, the Jewish mystics tell him like, you can't have it. Do you know like, one person back in the day was able to do it, but only after all this preparation and all this ritual and whatnot. Like Max is just like, fuck that, I got it. So maybe they're right and he's wrong. I mean, I have full confession. In the early 2000s, I was really into the occult, and I studied Hebrew, and I know, like I none of this ever happened, but like there is the sacred name of God is like an actual concept, and supposedly you can use it for certain things, but it will change. It will change the world because it's basically taking pure creation or creation force and putting it inside the creation, which isn't really supposed to be the way that it happens, right? Like the prime architect would exist outside of the creation.
Hmm.
So to smuggle it in, I don't know, but Jewish mystics do say like you can hack things with it or whatever. I mean, that's obviously not their terminology, but I don't know. It's maybe he should have listened to them. I don't necessarily think they should have had it. I don't think anybody in the movie should have it. They all seem, I mean, pretty kind of shady, right? I do. I really like Ben Shankman as Lenny. Lenny Meyer. I love the scenes with him. I don't know. He's so personable, but
Yeah, he
then
is.
he's hiding, some violence there.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, there is uh they do seem to want the number for their own purposes. And it doesn't necessarily seem like their purposes are pure in nature. Um which is, I mean, like there's a possibility like that maybe not only Max has that recognition of like, if I attain the number it will change me irrecoverably, but also that if I have the number, then the possibility is for the number to get out, and it then becomes like, well, it's Oppenheimer deciding to, proceed with developing the atomic bomb because
Yeah.
there was that. I mean, there's that thing of like he struggled with doing that because he recognized it has this great possibility for good, but it also has a great possibility for evil. And like recognizing that, too often in science there is a forgetfulness of like the concept of like just because you can do a thing, should you do a thing?
Right.
And like, I mean, look at AI.
I was
Um, I mean, fuck.
That's exactly what I was
Everyone
just
who's
thinking.
It's crazy because everyone who's involved in creating AI has copped to like, well, yeah, I saw Terminator, I know the Matrix, all these things that are warning signs, and then they say like, yeah, it turns out when we went to turn it off, it didn't like it, so then it disabled our ability to shut it off. Like, you didn't stop to question this, did you? Like, and that's, I mean, maybe Max reaches that point where he realizes that even if he has a number and he has it contained inside of himself, it will never stop people coming for him, trying to get it from him. And he can't control what then happens with it, when what then people can do with it. So maybe it's just best to not have it anymore or even have the ability to attain it.
Right. What do you think about that, John?
I'm sorry. I'm just I can't stop thinking about you studying the occult and how if I was there when you were going over ancient Hebraic texts, I would just have turned to the nearest person and said, "Don't look at the Ark, Marion. Whatever you do, keep your eyes shut."
Yeah,
Uh,
I was. Go ahead.
no, I mean, I think in all seriousness, I'm thinking about how like two of the main people that are after Max, the Hasidic Kabbalists and Wall Street analysts, and I think what he's trying to show is what Aronofsky is trying to show here is just sort of like how he views predatory capitalism and extreme religiosity, on as part of like the same plane. Like
Yep.
with the Wall Street analysts, like pattern equals profit, and with the Kabbalists, it's like pattern becomes a divine language. And for Max, I think before he got into this, pattern just was sort of this more neutral form of truth. But once you put them all together, what you end up asking as the viewer is like, okay, if the universe has a code, you know, who gets to interpret it, who has the right to interpret it, and thus becomes sort of not just the gatekeeper of that knowledge, but the gatekeeper of the tools to interpret.
Yeah.
And I think, and that I think is like really what where Max is really sort of trapped, what his sort of almost Kafka-esque predicament becomes.
I've never thought of this before, but you just made me realize, like, so he lobotomizes himself and loses the ability, conceivably loses the 216 digit number, right?
Hmm.
But Marcy Dawson had picked up that printout from the garbage.
Yeah.
And so she has the number. Now, I don't know if it's worthless in her hands, but so somebody does have the number. But like he says to the mystics, I'm sure you've written down every combination of so you've had it. It's not the number. It's the I forget how he says it, but basically like it needs the right prophet. He doesn't say that, but like basically I'm extrapolating. It needs the right person. It needs the right organic vessel. So it may end up just being useless, for the time being in the world of the movie.
Well, I think it's in how it's used too. It's kind of like, ooh, okay, think of it like this: that if Max, let's put it in an objective kind of way, the number as gasoline and Max is a car, and then everyone else is like a handcart. What would be the usefulness of gasoline in a handcart?
Yeah,
It,
right.
you're
Okay.
just
Yeah.
you're just moving the gasoline around. That's all you're doing. You don't have a way to process it. You don't have a way to utilize it that it becomes the thing that is used in a car that moves it down the road. Um, so maybe because he also has his computer that he's created, and he then can feed it into the system. He can then read the stock market. Like that's another thing about the is that even if she has the number, she doesn't have whatever programming he's used inside that computer system to make it spit out those numbers for him and be able to read the stock market. And um, he even destroys that too. So like they don't have a way of just breaking into his apartment and going, oh, let's just we'll just rebuild this and make it work. Like, no, that's gone. Like it's all kind of gone. It's all locked away inside of him. And once he lobotomizes himself, it's gone too. And then, I have a feeling that even if those Hasidic Jews got a hold of it, um, who knows how they could interpret the number as well, like and get an answer for themselves. Like there's maybe like a different there's maybe like a grouping of the numbers together, like it's this several character number. Is it literally is every number literally just a letter assignment, or do some numbers get grouped together so become different numbers than you
Right. Right.
interpret?
What's the pattern
So
within the number?
yeah, and if it's like a what is it supposedly like a 200 and something digit number, how
Two
many is it?
sixteen.
216. Can you imagine the amount of alphanumerics you'd have to run through to get to something you're like that makes sense, and you're like, okay, that might be it, and you'd spend so much time doing it. Okay, let's try this intonation. Okay, let's try this intonation.
Right.
That maybe like they just spend like a couple centuries just running through all the different possibilities if they had just a group of people just trying different intonations and numbers, and who knows if they ever ran into it. So
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about the Torah being a data set is correct, and all that stuff that
mm,
Lenny Meyer like works out numerically, that's all there. Like you can go
mm,
deep. That's ultimately kind of what made me shut down my interest in Mystic Hebrew or whatever. Like that end of Kabbalah is I mean, there's no end. You know, I mean, you could go. It's just so fucking deep. But and I just didn't have the time to do that.
And the black and white in this film really helps with that, I think, a lot more than people realize because the world is so stripped down. The
Yeah.
black and white world that we're in, it which, it's not, you know, 1930s MGM soft lighting type of black and white.
No.
And
Right.
it's not even 1940s film noir
Yeah.
style of lighting. It's something very different, almost like, almost ink-like with everything, and just
Yes.
everything gets
Yes.
so stripped down that the world that you're seeing itself feels just like geometry. It's like
Ye-
both a literal geometry and like a figurative moral geometry, and it that just mirrors Max's thinking, uh, because everything must be resolved into a pattern, and that's why we see the world. And I think that's really, I think, and I like Matthew Libatic quite a bit. Like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the films that he's worked in. I'm like that he's working with Spike Lee now. So this is a kind of a neat little foray into the world of filmmaking, and I think like a lot of the credit goes to not just Aronofsky's vision, but how Libatic realized it.
Yeah, definitely. It is so high contrast, black and white, and
Yeah.
you're right. I never was able to put that in the words before, but you're exactly right. It's it's very ink. It's very ink like. Oh wow, that just
Yeah.
added a whole nother level of appreciation.
It's also, the style is almost like this sort of weird manifesto for the way Max thinks.
Yeah,
And we don't even realize it until we're already sucked in. That's how strong.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He really pulls you into his neurology, like, and part of it also is those techniques with like the sampling, the pills, the shots, the locks on the door.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'll tell you what it reminds me of a little bit, like in film form. Um, I grew up very much into punk rock, listening to punk rock, and like and one of the most popular zines, I mean, for sure out here in California, but really elsewhere, was Maximum Rock and Roll. And the way you knew if you had been handling a Maximum Rock and Roll is that the ink from it comes off on your fingers. It's like, a black and white manifesto that is somebody printed in their garage at 2 a.m.,
Yep.
reporting on different scenes around the world, or reviewing, new records. And that little, like, sort of inky powder on your fingers, and you look at it, and the paper would be, the print, it would be smudged, but that was the way of it. That was the way of Maximum Rock and Roll. This feels like a celluloid version, of an issue of Maximum Rock and Roll.
That's wonderful. Wow, I haven't thought about maximum rock and
That
roll in a
is a
long
that is
time.
a good that is a interesting way of thinking about it. Yeah. I love the black and white use in this film. I think it's one of those where I think that is another reason why people tend to like might think this and Iron Man as well was like that choice of like, well, we can do this in color, let's do it in black and white. Like
Yeah.
it makes you forget that it can be a stylistic choice and it can be done very well and very interesting.
And be essential. This could not be in
Yeah.
color. It could not be in color.
Oh, I wouldn't want to see it in color, honestly.
It just couldn't exist in color, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on Pi.
I think it asks you, does knowledge destroy? Does obsession destroy? Or is that the desire for meaning pathological? And I just sort of think to myself, Horde, once again, with elements, it doesn't come from monsters. And Sometimes it comes from just unbearable suspicions that prompt us to make weird connections at things that we have no business connecting. And yeah, Pi does that both elegantly and with dirt under the fingernails.
That's very well said. I think I'll just reiterate what I said before. It's just one of those great examples of what you can do with a lot of style, with very minimal money, and make a great film. Like um, sometimes, like Hollywood and the film industry gets so caught up in trying to make something bigger and shinier and bolder and louder than everything else that we forget what it can be like when someone like puts heart and dedication and style into a film. And you know, I mean, you accomplish something like this. I think it's why it's one of my favorite Aronofsky movies. There's certain directors you go back and you look at their first films and like you recognize like, wow, this person is, you give them an opportunity and they'll do amazing things.
It was created over a roughly 2 year period of development and production and then shot for 28 days in Brooklyn. Yeah, I think you can see the fire of a future successful filmmaker here. And like a lot of these guys, it's a lot of these guys. Tarantino's the same way, totally different filmmaker, but just the point being, his favorite movie, his first movie is always going to be my favorite movie because of the impression it left on me. Pi, it's that, but also Pi speaks my language. And I do like, enough of Aronofsky's other stuff. The Fountain is one, I saw that in the theater, and I just literally have no memory of it whatsoever. Now, granted, I smoked a fucking huge hog leg before going in, me and a friend. So that could possibly have something to do with that. But I remember nothing about that movie. And also, I never see that movie anywhere. It never, like, nothing ever brings it back into my attention. So I'm thinking about it now. I need to like add it to a list. Otherwise I'm going to forget it exists again, because I wouldn't mind seeking it out. John, I'm so taken, John, with your comparison to Lovecraft and like the forbidden knowledge, that my final thought, I'm going to read something from Lovecraft. This is Lovecraft is at times a wonderful writer and at times not so wonderful. And I mean, the guys that wrote pulp for a living, that's the case, because they're writing constantly to earn money, right? So this, I think, is the finest thing that Lovecraft has ever written. The entire Call of Cthulhu story, obviously it's renowned as, the basis for such an enormous cultural thing in, at this point in our lives. But the opening really, I think, gels with this. So let me just say, the most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little. But someday the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. I think that just works here so well. And also it's, one of the things about this passage and that gels so well with this movie is, it's not just that the piecing together of the disassociated knowledge will open up terrifying vistas of reality, but of our frightful position therein. You learn the name of God, you might get an idea of how God feels about humanity. And it might not be how you want him to feel. So it's Pi. It's a 216 digit name of God number, pattern in the stock market, Fibonacci sequence, and it's also the number pi, which is, as I tried to go through a lot of it right off the jump, and I didn't make it very far, all things considered, because it just goes on endlessly, right? There's no end.
Yeah.
So that's a terrifying vista in and of itself. So that's Pi. It's Elements of Horror, the Horror Vision. My name is Sean.
And I'm John C. Riley.
Memory.
When incoming high school senior Lisa McCready's boyfriend and classmates are brutally murdered at a party in the woods, the quiet suburban community of Sundown Hills transforms into a paranoid nightmare. Betrayal, corruption, and dark family secrets push Lisa dead center into a burgeoning class war where rival millionaires plot to steal the town's future between reliance on big oil and the incoming age of legalized weed, electric cars, and social conscience. As she struggles for answers, the killings continue, and Lisa finds the world she knew is little more than a lie to placate the masses and keep a satanic 1% in power. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of Murder Virus, a collection of desires, and Volume 4 comes Black Gloves and Broken Hearts, teenage giallo mystery